Good afternoon to you, Mark Sott of HurricaneTrack.com here. I want to update you real quick on some things regarding 97L. First, let's take a look at the sea surface temperature anomalies. This got updated this afternoon. Look at all the warm water here in the main development region, the deep tropics. But really, look at this. All the very warm water compared to average in the western Atlantic basin, especially up here in the northwest Atlantic. Caribbean, the Gulf running significantly above normal in some locations, and even some of these locations also at record levels, never seen in the satellite era. Water temperatures this warm, especially for so late in the year. And look at this, we're talking about the end of September, not the end of August. So all of this in here is going to start to matter, it looks like, over the coming days because of this. This is the vorticity signature of 97L. I really like this map because it shows me how this is evolving over time, and it's getting more and more round in its appearance. And here it is on the satellite animation. Showers and thunderstorms starting to curl in around a broad area of low pressure, again as that upper level anticyclone does its magic to evacuate that air into the upper levels of the atmosphere. You have convergence and low level inflow down here curling around the low pressure area, and then at the upper levels of the atmosphere the winds turn to clockwise, and in this case it's flowing out generally fairly uniformly, and that helps to promote the engine of the system, so to speak, that it keeps it going. And this is headed towards the Windward Islands, Barbados here, and further south, Grenada as an example of geographic areas down here. Need to be watching this closely. There's a chance this could be a tropical storm by the time it gets there, probably on the day, during the day, Wednesday. Now I want to show you the latest afternoon spaghetti model plots, as they're called, 1800 UTC. So these are valid roughly 2 p.m. Eastern time, but we call them the afternoon models. Fairly tight envelope of model plots here, as you can see, and if you just kind of draw it into a cone, and it just helps to fill everything in. This is not a forecast officially or anything like that, but just kind of outlining or highlighting the model guidance envelope. You'll hear that term talked about frequently in the discussions, and you can see that it's fairly tightly clustered, and they're also fairly, if I take it away, far to the west here. And in fact, the consensus models over here, and I'll try to draw this with a red line, looks like it ends right around in here somewhere, TVCA. You can see that right here. The consensus, fairly far to the south of the rest of the envelope, and fairly far to the west. The GFS is trying to turn this up into the Dominican Republic, Hispaniola as a whole. We'll see. The other models are a little bit more to the west with time, so it's going to be really interesting to see how this evolves once this gets past the Windward Islands. And speaking of that area, you can clearly see the threat from the various model plots for the Windward Islands. Even Trinidad and Tobago will be on the south of this system. But remember, these plots are for the center of the supposed circulation, and does not show the area of the effects. And again, as I showed this morning, very large area of showers and thunderstorms. You move that over here, and you can see that, yep, there's going to be some squally weather, rough seas, locally gusty winds, heavy rains for the Windward Islands. Now, the intensity, we're talking about roughly 48 hours or so, 36 to 48 hours, that this would be impacting the Windward Islands. And most of the models have this as a decent tropical storm by that time. Luckily, it's a little bit past the 48-hour time frame that they start developing it into a hurricane, and maybe we can get it past the Windward Islands before it does so. But a strengthening tropical storm, my experience has shown, because I've been in plenty of them myself, when they are strengthening, they typically have more wind energy brought down to the surface because of convective activity or thunderstorms that are developing. You think about it, it's like an athlete at the prime, and they're just on their game, healthy, young, whatever, and as opposed to somebody that's kind of at the end of their career. The whole sports analogy thing works with hurricanes often. I saw somebody talk about that hurricanes are like baseball, that you have 9 innings you got to play, and some get up to bat, some miss, some hit, blah, blah, blah. But, really, the thing to think about when they are strengthening, it's like an athlete or a boxer. That's a good analogy. Right at the top of their game, instead of somebody that maybe is suffering a cold or they stayed out partying too late the night before the big match. That's how it works. And so when they are on their way up in intensity, then you can get some pretty good downburst winds, and people in the Windward Islands need to be aware of that. Now, a lot has been made of the Euro, ECMWF, and the GFS, and the battle going on between those solutions. And what I want to show you here, coming courtesy of TropicalTidbits.com, Levi Cowan's site. I want to give credit where credit is due. He generates the code, wrote it himself to create these maps. So that's good, and we appreciate that. And what this shows, basically, you have 50-something members, 51 members, I think it is, of the European ensemble group. So that's like a 50-person orchestra, okay? So you have operational runs, which will be like a singular instrument, and maybe a very good instrument at that. Maybe it's a violinist, okay? But then you've got behind that violinist, the soloist, 51-member orchestra that's going to be incredible. And together, when you put it all together. And so that's what you have here with these ensemble runs. You get lots of different variables and lots of different outputs, and you try to see where are things more focused. If you change things just a little over 51 different runs, the GFS has, I believe, 20 ensemble members. So all that being said, what does this show? The average of those 50-something runs of the Euro indicating lower than normal pressure anomalies over to the west here and northwest over the next 10 days. This is valid 10 days out. That's a long time. But this just shows you the uncertainty here. And then, so the blues are the lower pressure anomalies, and the reds would be your higher pressure anomalies against the background state, what we call the climatology. And so you got this big high that all 51 members generally are agreeing that you're going to have a pretty strong high sitting out here over the northwest Atlantic, and deep low pressure area overall on average somewhere down here in the Caribbean Sea, instead of over here like the GFS is showing. This is the GFS ensemble members, and this actually shows the different members, and it's got a very different scenario. I mean, look, here's day 10 from the Euro, generally suggesting low pressure over here from our system, and then the GFS says nope, this is going to come in and make almost a 90-degree turn and come up towards the northwest Atlantic somewhere. Some of the ensemble members take it out, clearly. Some of them bring it into the Carolinas, even New England. Can you imagine that? A hurricane up here near Bar Harbor in Portland and Maine? My goodness, this is wild. This is as crazy as it gets. Well, it's probably crazier, but it just shows you the uncertainty here, just looking between these two. One thing I can say, overall, the Euro brings the system in pretty weak down here and doesn't strengthen it until later in the Caribbean, whereas the GFS is strengthening this all along. It feels this weakness that develops over here and is able to come up and try to turn out. So the intensity of what would soon presumably be Matthew is going to be very important, perhaps, to its steering. Sometimes that's the case, sometimes it's not. But this just goes to show you that, boy, this story just gets more interesting every 6 to 12 hours that we get new model output. All right, that's it from me for today, this afternoon. Again, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, as always. Thanks for tuning in. I'll have much more of these video posts for you as we move forward through the rest of the story of this system.